ఇది ఇన్పుట్ 1. ఈడ ఇంకోటి ఇది ఇన్పుట్ 2 ఉంది. ఇది ఇన్పుట్ 1 లేదు ఎందుకు ఈడ?
ఇంకా డైరెక్ట్ అమ్మా, ఇది డైరెక్ట్ ఛానల్ 2 ఏదైతే ఉందో ఇన్పుట్ 2 మట్టికే
అంతేనా? ఓకే.
Hello. Okay. Good afternoon, everybody. Today I am very happy to welcome everyone. Indira Dhanrasgiri, she is a great woman. She donated for 7 departments in humanities. One is Telugu, Urdu, Deccani, Hindi, and also Sanskrit and CCL. Every year Sanskrit department conducting a good meetings, good lectures. Today a professor from IIT Madras, he will give lecture today. So I welcome once again all of you. Professor K.S. Kannan, please come on to the dais. Today our chief guest, B. Rajshekhar sir, Pro Vice Chancellor, too. Please, I welcome sir. Please come on to the dais. Now I request Rajkumari Indira Dhanrasgiri, already she is there here. And also I welcome Sanskrit head Amba Kulkarni, please come on to the dais. Now I request Professor B. Rajshekhar will preside the program.
Respected Professor K.S. Kannan, Sant Rajendra Singh Maharaj, Chair Professor IT Madras, Madam Rajkumari Indradidi Dhanrasgiri, Dean Professor Charajus Narayan, Professor Amba Kulkarni, my dear colleagues and participants of this endowment lecture. Now let us before listening to Professor K.S. Kannan, I request Professor Amba Kulkarni to introduce Professor Kannan.
Very good afternoon to everybody. It's my great privilege and honor to introduce Professor K.S. Kannan. who is holding Sant Rajinder Singh Maharaj Chair Professor at IIT Madras, a prestigious chair which is instituted at IIT Madras very recently. He is a science graduate from National College, Bangalore, and then after doing his BSc, he pursued MA, MPhil and PhD in Sanskrit. He also holds Vidvat degree, and in Kannada he also has the highest degree of Ratna. He was also nominated as a senior fellow at ICSSR. He was nominated member of the Society of Indian Institute of Advanced Studies at Shimla. Recently, he was conferred D.Litt honoris causa by Rashtriya Sanskrit Vidyapith, Tirupati. And he was also given a very special title, Vidya Nidhi, by His Highness Rangapriya Swamiji from Bangalore. And at this juncture, I also remember in 1990, I think Bharati ji had organized one competition for writing essays on relevance of Indian traditional Shastras in modern context. And at that time, in 1990, Professor Kannan wrote a paper on Sanskrit to English machine translation, for which he was awarded International Merit Prize. And I envy Professor Kannan, because at that time I was also one of the contestants. He has, to his credit, several books. One book which I liked very much is the Narada Shilpa Shastra, which is a Sanskrit text on architectural civil engineering. He also has written a book on theoretical foundations of Ayurveda. And in Kannada, he has written Subhashit Sangra, I think Sukti Kosha. He has several articles, not only in the traditional Shastras, but also on the scientific literature in Sanskrit. For example, fauna in Upanishadic literature, the symbolism of inverted tree. In Gita, we come across this, Urdhva Mula Adho Shakha. He has written on metaphysics of Ananda Tandava, the bliss dance, and concept of consciousness in artificial intelligence. So, like all of you, I am also very eager to listen to Professor Kannan. And he will be speaking on Vakrokti Jivita, a novel perspective in Indian poetics. Vakrokti Jivita was written by Kuntaka, sometimes in 10th century. He is from Kashmir. And the manuscripts were found only recently, some maybe 100 years back. And people have worked on it. And we have very few scholars who have gone through these texts. Of course, nowadays these are there in the college curriculum also. Vakrokti Jivitam is introduced at several institutes. So I am happy that Professor Kannan is here, who will be speaking on Vakrokti Jivitam.
Thank you, Dr. Anna. Now, I request the delegates on the dais to light the lamp and garland the photo of Sunduk Session. we proceed further, the felicitation of Mahamadhyay Sripada Subramaniam.
Well, again, it's my honor to introduce Professor Sripada Subramaniam, who is a visiting professor in our department. Sir, please come. Recently, in the convocation of Rashtriya Sanskrit Vidyapitham Tirupati, he was awarded the highest title, Mahamahopadhyay, by the Rashtriya Sanskrit Vidyapith Tirupati. Sir, we are honored. He is a scholar of Vyakarana, Nyaya and Vedanta, and he also has got recognition as Shastra Pandita from the two Pithas, Kanchi Kamakoti Pitham and the Sri Sringeri Sharada Pitham. Before retirement, before coming and joining us with us as a visiting faculty, he was at Telugu University. He was the director of distance education. Also, he served as a director of AP State Government Oriental Manuscript Library and Research Institute. So now I request our Pro Vice Chancellor to felicitate Professor.
I request Professor K.S. Kannan to deliver the endowment, Puttur Sheshendra Sharma endowment.
Srimati Rajkumari Indira Devi Dhanrajgir, Professor B. Rajshekhar, the Pro Vice Chancellor of University of Hyderabad, Professor Amba Kulkarni, the galaxy of scholars present here, ladies and gentlemen. It gives me pleasure to speak a few words on Vakrokti Jivita, a novel perspective in Indian poetics. And before I commence, Dr. Meera will sing two verses from Kuntaka's Vakrokti Jivita, the Mangala Shlokas of Vakrokti Jivita.
जगत्त्रितयवैचित्र्यचित्रकर्मविधायिनं जगत्त्रितयवैचित्र्यचित्रकर्मविधायिनं शिवं शक्तिपरिस्पन्दमात्रोपकरणं नुमः शिवं शक्तिपरिस्पन्दमात्रोपकरणं नुमः शिवं नुमः वन्दे कवीन्द्रवक्त्रेन्दुलास्यमन्दिरनर्तकीं कवीन्द्रवक्त्रेन्दुलास्यमन्दिरनर्तकीं देवीं सूक्तिपरिस्पन्द सुन्दराभिनयोज्ज्वलां वन्दे कवीन्द्रवक्त्रेन्दुलास्यमन्दिरनर्तकीं देवीं सूक्तिपरिस्पन्द सुन्दराभिनयोज्ज्वलां वन्दे देवीम्।
It's my honor to be present in the midst of you, especially Indira Devi ji, to speak a few words on Kuntaka's Vakrokti Jivita. Indira Devi ji's husband himself was a great poet, and she showed acquaintance with some of the texts of Sanskrit regarding poetics. So it's a double pleasure for me to speak here in this august audience. Vakrokti Jivita is a unique work in a very charming Sanskrit written by Kuntaka, who belonged to 10th century of Kashmir. He is a master of style, and he anticipates or parallels many Western ideas of rhetorics and stylistics. Arriving between Anandavardhana and Abhinav Gupta, the twin giants of the Dhwani school, Kuntaka was well acquainted with the former and indeed influenced the latter. Blessed though with hardly any followers, Kuntaka, there was nobody to pursue the line that Kuntaka began. So he yet sought to reframe, if not reset, many figures of speech, and the role of the poetic genius or pratibha has been very elegantly captured in his book. What's poetry? This is a question that is easy to ask and very difficult to answer. The answer could be something akin to what Augustine said regarding time. If you ask me what is time, I cannot say. If you don't ask me, I know what is time. So what's poetry, we cannot easily answer, but we can recognize good poetry. The value of investigation into poetry has been very well brought out by John Brough, a recent scholar of the last century, so who said, Sanskrit literary criticism is at least as well worth reading as Aristotle's Poetics or Horace's Ars Poetica, and in many ways more sensitive in its approach to poetry than either of their works. A modern writer, Kushavaha, a contemporary writer, has said, the modern critical need of the search for irony, paradox, and ambiguity was anticipated in India hundreds of years ago. You can see that many ideas of Geoffrey Leach, I.A. Richards, practical ideas of practical criticism were all anticipated in the works of in the work of Kuntaka. I can give you one sample at the outset how he deals with issues in poetry. There is one famous verse of Kalidasa which reads, Dvayam gatam samprati shochaniyatam samagama prarthanaya kapalinaha kalachasa kantimati kalavataha tomasya lokasya cha netra kaumudi. The context is where Shiva comes to test Parvati, and he himself being Shiva has come in disguise as a brahmacharin and repudiates her choice of Shiva as her husband. And he says, two things have now come to be very pitiable. Dvayam gatam sampratishochaniyatam. In their earnestness seeking the company of Shiva. Samagama prarthanaya kapalinaha. Kalachasa kantimati kalavataha. The one is the digit on the moon, the digit of the moon on the head of Shiva. And yourself, who are a veritable moonlight to this world. Tomasya lokasya cha netra kaumudi. Shiva wants to deride Shiva himself and see whether Parvati really loves him and what kind of understanding she has of the choice that she has made. And while testing Parvati, he attacks Shiva himself. And in this shloka of Kalidasa, which occurs in Kumarsambhava 5th canto, Kuntaka takes up this verse to show the very many merits of this verse. He says, there are 1,000 words at least for referring to Shiva. So, atra parameshwara vachaka shabda sahasra sambhavepi kapalinaha iti bibhatsarasalambana vibhava vachaka shabdo jugupsaspadattvena prayujyamanaha kama vachaka vakratam vidadhati. So, he has chosen the word kapalinaha for Shiva. He could have just said Shivasya or Pinakinaha, as in fact some variant readings do read. But on the other hand, he uses the word kapalinaha, and that is to show that this is a matter which is highly contemptible and in fact which can evoke revulsion. A person wearing skulls as his ornaments, a garland of skulls, so how can he be coveted by Parvati? So he says that this inspires only bibhatsarasa. And then Samprati dvayancha iti atiramaniyam. Now two things he says, and right now, so this itself, kamapi vachaka vakratam yatkila purvam eka saiva durvyasana dushitattvena shochaniya jata. The digit of the moon could have been very happy by itself and herself. So he exploits the feminine gender of the word also. And now she has herself gone and placed herself on the head of Shiva, and therefore tathavidha duradhyavasaya sahayikam eva arabdham, and you are trying to seek the company of such a person. And thirdly, the word prarthana is also very significant there. So prarthana shabdopi atitaram ramaniyaha yasmat kakataliya yogena yet tat samagamaha kadachit na vachita vahaha. Suppose Parvati had come to be with Shiva all by chance and not by intention, then it would have been somehow tolerable and free from reproach. On the other hand, prarthana punaha atra atyantam kaulina kalanka karini. So to seek the hand of such a Shiva, so such a person is something scandalous. Sacha tvancha iti dvayorapyanabhuyamana parasparasparthi lavanyatishaya pratipadana paratvena upattam. So the expressions sacha and tvancha, so that digit of the moon and yourself, so those both of them are most charming, and they in fact rival each other in their beauty and charm, and that both should land in the company of Shiva is something most pitiable. Kalavataha kantimati cha itcha madhupratyayena dvayorapi prashamsa pratiyate ityetesham pratyekam kashidapyarthaha shabdantarabhideyatam notsahati. Not a single word of these is replaceable. Kavivakshita vishesha abhidhanatvameva vachakatva lakshanam. So the right word to be used in poetry is such that no word there is replaceable. So the best words in the best places and in the best order, so that constitutes poetry. This talk can only give a glimpse or overview of this text. Runs to 300 pages, and yet the text is a bit incomplete. So we do not know whether we have got the full text now, and it's written in a dense prose, and therefore the selection that I can present is only a very difficult one, and I'll have to leave out many issues. And there are many nuances that cannot be explained, because this also assumes a knowledge of Sanskrit. So to an audience which may not all consist of Sanskrit scholars, so I'll try to make it as simple as possible, and the nuances sometimes need some background of Sanskrit, so some of the items may be missed. I'll give you some references at the end for those who are interested in pursuing. Now, this field of investigation into the nature of poetry, the purpose of poetry, etc., is called Alankara. So, in the Vedic literature, we have the expression Alankaroti or Arankaroti in the sense of enabling, actually speaking, rather than mere decoration. Later on, what was really very effective by its role as decoration, so came to be called a mere decoration. So Dandin, for example, says, Kavya Shobhakaran Dharman Alankaran Prachakshate. Such are called Alankaras as endo a poetic composition with beauty. Anandavardhana would call his own work, Dhvanyaloka, as Kavya Alankara. He says, Sahradayaloka Namni Kavya Alankare. So this work is indeed a Kavya Alankara work. And Mahima Bhatta, who came later than Kuntaka, and who was also a critic of the Dhvani school of poetry, tried to attack Kuntaka because Kuntaka was also an admirer of many ideas of the Dhvanikara, and therefore he says, he tries to deride Kuntaka by saying he is Kavya Kanchana Kashashma Manina. He tries to portray himself as the touchstone of the gold of poetry. So, actually speaking, as some critics have pointed out, a critic like Thinam Srikantaya, so of Karnataka, has pointed out, indeed, rather than taking it as a reproach or blame of Kuntaka, it can be taken as a compliment, because the way Kuntaka has interpreted poetry is extraordinary. In fact, he even rues that Kuntaka did not write some commentaries on some works of Kalidasa or other great writers. So that would have been an eye-opener to the way one should understand poetry. Now, the Vakrokti that Kuntaka speaks of in his work has a great history. Earlier rhetoricians like Bhamaha, for example, had stressed the importance of Vakrokti, and Bhamaha says in his Kavyalankara work, Saisha sarvatra Vakroktihi anayartho vibhavyate yatnosyam kavina karyaha ko alankaraha anayavina. So every poet must put forth efforts to bring out this Vakrokti, because it is through that the great sense of the poetical work that can be comprehended. And poets must put forth great efforts. Yatnosyam kavina karaha. And what alankara can be there without that? The issue of style and stylistics has been analyzed in a great measure in recent times, especially. It was Philip Rawson who said in the Indian Scheme of Things, so he has an article on the nature of ornaments in the Indian tradition. So he says, ornament is a functional aspect of art, not a gratuitous extra. So it's not for some mere decoration and bedeking, so as some extraneous element that we have alankaras. So ornaments have a very vital role to play in poetry and in art in general. So of course he was inspired by Anandakumar Swami, who has an article called The Ornament, so in which he analyzes Greek sources and Sanskrit sources and shows how they played very many similar roles, and how the concept of ornament is very deeply analyzed in the Indian tradition. Style, it has been said, is the garb of thought. This is the statement of Seneca. Style is the cutting edge of content. So these two pithy statements show how style and content, the manner of presentation, the matter of presentation, are intimately linked. Stylistics, the study of style, is also called literary linguistics, it is a branch of applied linguistics and is applied commonly to discourse analysis and literary criticism and studies the connection between form and function. The essential problem of the Alankara Shastra is that we see in poetry the self-same words that we make use of in common discourse, the same meanings and ideas that we make use of in common discourse, and yet poetry, by some mysterious effect, so gets the stamp of poetry. So yaneva shabdan vayam uchcharamaha, yaneva charthan vayam alapamaha, taireva vinyasta vishesha bhavyaihi sammohayante kavayo jaganti. So poets indeed mesmerize the world by somehow placing these very words in some particular order. Now, what kind of shabda and what kind of artha, sound and sense, come to constitute poetry? So this has been defined by, of course, many Alankarikas prior to Kuntaka and later than Kuntaka have attempted these. The definitions offered by Kuntaka are Shabdarthau Sahitau Vakra Kavi Vyaparashalini Bandhe Vyavasthitau Kavyam Tadvidahlada Karini. So the Shabda and Artha must both be there and they must be Sahita. So Sahita means they match each other very well. In the Vakra Kavi Vyapara, so the word Vakra goes with Vyapara. So the Kavi has a Vakra Vyapara. So Vakra actually means crooked. So the function of the poet is something not very straight and straightforward. So that is the job of the scientists, the Shastrakaras, to do it. So the presentation is done in an unusual manner. So it is the Vakra Vyapara. So Bandhe Vyavasthitau Kavyam Tadvid Ahlada Karini. And Tadvit is the word he often uses for Sahridaya. And ultimately the Sahridayas must enjoy that poetry. So if they are presented in such a manner, that alone constitutes poetry. And he says, Shabda should be such that even though there may be numerous equivalents and synonyms for the word, it should be the one which conveys the exact meaning that was to be conveyed. Shabdo vivakshitarthaika vachako nyesha satsvapi. So even though there may be numerous other words and synonyms, such word must be chosen as would convey the exact idea. Artha sahridayakladakari swaspanda sundaraha. And the artha should also be something that can enamor the heart of the Sahridayas. So in this work of Kuntaka, you can come across the word spanda so very many times, so reflecting his affiliation with Kashmir Shaivism. Even in the opening verses that are sung at the commencement in both the shlokas, one in praise of Shiva and one in praise of Parvati, so you could find the word spanda or parispanda. And in Kalidasa's words, Shiva and Parvati are united as Shabda and Artha. So Shiva is Artha and Parvati is Vak. And he says, he goes further and says, the Shabda and Artha are related in a very special manner. Now, this idea has not been stressed by other Alankarikas. He says, Samasarva gunau santau suhrdaviva sangatau. Shabda and Artha should be like friends. So always going together. Parasparasya shobhayai shabdarthau bhavato itham. So each adorns the other. Shabda is an adornment for Artha and Artha is an adornment for Shabda. So, and he even says that there should be a sort of a competition. Spardhaya vidyate yatra yathasam bhayorapi. So in ultimately nourishing the rasa that has to issue out of the work, the Shabda and the Artha compete with each other. And he says, Sahitya thus is Sahita Bhavena Sthitau Vakrata Vichitra Gunalankara Sampadam Paraspara Spardhadiroha. So there is a strong competition between Shabda and Artha in being supportive of the rasa. This is a sort of a relationship between the part and the whole. Each part is animated by the spirit of the whole. There is no part that is not contributing to the goal or goals of the whole. And there is no part that is not in optimal coordination with other parts. So this one reminds one of the systemic approach of von Bertalanffy and others, so of recent times. So this kind of an approach we find both in Dhvanikara's work, Anandavardhana's work, and in Kuntaka's work. And he gives us a beautiful illustration. This verse, Tatoruna Parispanda Mandi Krita Upushashi Dadre Kama Parikshama Kamini Ganda Pandutam. The occasion is of the description of the rise of the moon. And the moon looks a bit pale, and he says, Tatoruna Parispanda Mandi Krita, the question of the context of sunrise where the moon has become dull. So he wears then a pale look. Dadre Kama Parikshama Kamini Ganda Pandutam. His face looks like the face of a lady who is in her virahavastha and therefore has turned pale. Kama Parikshama Kamini Ganda Pandutam. So this kind of a combination, the comparison where the Shabda and Artha match each other, is one of the best examples of poetry, he says. And how the entirety of the Shabda and Artha should contribute to the Rasa is beautifully illustrated by him, taking up another verse from Kalidasa. This is from Raghuvamsha, 14th canto, where Sita is abandoned. So, and sage Valmiki comes there. So, after Lakshmana has abandoned her, so he has left her and he has explained to her the context in which she had to be abandoned, and he goes away. Sita is crying, and sage Valmiki hears the voice of somebody crying and hastens to that spot and finds Sita. And how does he take care of Sita is beautifully hinted in this verse. So, by not mentioning the name of Valmiki at all, Tamabhyagachad Ruditanusari Munih Kushedhma Haranaya Yataha Nishada Vidhantaja Darshanothaha Shlokatvam Apadyate Yasya Shokaha. He says, Atra Kosau Munir Valmiki Riti Pariyaya Pada Matre Vaktavye. He could have said Valmiki Janma Rishihi or whatever. There are several names for Valmiki. So, using none of them, he is using one expression, a long epithet for Valmiki. So, Paramakarunikasya, to show how compassionate sage Valmiki is, he says, Nishada Nirbhinna Shakuni Sandarshana Matra Samuthita Shokaha Shlokatvam Abhajata Yasya. So, he is the sage whose heart was deeply moved when he saw one of the curlew birds shot by an unknown hunter. So, that itself moved the sage so much that spontaneous effusion of words became the poetry called Srirama, the Ramayana. So, Shoka Shlokatvam Agataha, as Anandavardhana would say. And therefore, he says, how extremely compassionate that sage is indicated by this reference, Nishada Vidhandaja Darshanothaha Shlokatvam Apadyate Yasya Shokaha. Iti tasya tadavastha janaka rajaputri disha darshana vyavasha vritte rantahkarana parispandaha karunarasa paripurushangataya sahridaya hridayahladakari kaver abhipretaha. The poet wants to show that this sage was extremely compassionate. So, if he were so compassionate with regard to just a bird in the forest which had met with some great difficulty, then how much more the sage would be compassionate towards Sita, who is in such a state of distress and distress now. After all, the sage also knew Sita's father. The sage knew Rama. The sage also knew what forced Rama to take a cruel decision like this. And therefore, he could very well understand the situation of Sita and the condition of Sita, especially now that she was in an advanced state of pregnancy. So, he could very well sympathize with Sita, and the way he conducts himself and the way he conducts her to the ashrama and takes every care of her needs. So, in that condition is very well anticipatable here. So, while describing Vakrokti, he says both of them, the Shabda and Artha, Ubhavetau Alankaryau. And the definition of Vakrokti given by him is Vaidagdhya Bhangi Bhaniti. It is a distinct way of expressing things. So, and he often refers to the expressions as Prasiddha Abhidhana Vitirekini Vichitraiva Abhidha. It is an Abhidha, or the direct sense given, a denotation which is so different from the common phrases that we think of. And he says that Vakrokti is the very soul of poetry. Vakrokti Kavya Jivitam. He also gives a number of bad examples. So, why this is not poetry, why this is not good poetry, and so on. for lack of time, I'll not go into those bad examples. So, in poetry, the non-literal sense is in fact the most important one. As Otto Jespersen said, suggestion is impression through suppression. So, this is one of the excellent ways of conveying the idea. There is also this statement: the poet describes an arc, the reader completes the circle. So, the imagination of the Sahridaya that should be kindled and the role that he must perform are very beautifully hinted at in this verse. The relationship between poetry and prose is compared to that of dance and walking. So prose is mere walking, poetry is dance. What is the purpose of poetry? Kuntaka asks, and he says, it is none different from the role, the function and the purpose of the Shastras. He says, Shastras are like bitter medicine, katuka ushadhavat shastram, avidya vyadhinashanam. So it destroys the illness called avidya or nescience. Ahlad yamrtavat kavyam. On the other hand, kavya is something which is very delectable, ahladi and nectarian, amrtavat, aviveka gadapaham, and even that ultimately is directed at removing one's lack of discrimination. And he says the four purusharthas that are stated as the common goal of every shastra in our heritage. Every shastra, you go to Sangeeta Shastra, you go to Natya Shastra, you go to Ayurveda, you go to Jyotisha, you go to Ganita, everywhere. So they say that this is ultimately related to the purusharthas that a man has to pursue. Chaturvarga phalaswadam apyatikramya tadvidam. So surpassing the four purusharthas by inclusion. So it's not by avoiding them. Kavyamrita rasena antashchamatkaraha vitanyate. So the Kavyamrita rasa, the nectarian juice that issues from poetry, delights the heart within of a Sahridaya. Now, in what ways are these vakroktis expressed or shown? This is called vakrata. In Sanskrit, the word vakra is also used for beauty. I had heard a statement in my high school days: straight is the path of duty and crooked is the path of beauty. So ultimately, the crookedness in expression, not being very straight and simple and bland and plain, that constitutes what's poetry. So he says there are 6 levels at which beauty can be imparted. Kavi vyapara vakratva prakara sambhavanti shat. And he says in each there are numerous divisions and subdivisions. Pratyekam bhavo bhedaha tesham vichitti hetavaha. So he's fond of the word vichitti. So it shows, it means brightness. So what imparts brightness to your expressions and to your ideas? So he says varna vinyasa vakrata. For example, starting from the most elemental thing. So just the sounds, the elemental sounds, the phonemes, so one should say. So that is called varna vinyasa vakrata. So by the choice of expressions, one can bring in the alankaras like anuprasa, yamaka, etc. So that constitutes varna vinyasa vakrata. And then the beauty of the word is analyzable into the purvardha and uttarardha. And in the purvardha constitutes the base of the word, and uttarardha constitutes the suffixes and the terminations of case or of tense, mode, etc. So in both places, so there can be some beauty. So he refers to the various subdivisions in Padapurvardha Vakrata like Rudhi Vaichitri Vakrata, Paryaya Vakrata, Upachara Vakrata, Vishesha Vakrata, Samvriti Vakrata, Pratyaya Vakrata, Vritti Vaichitri Vakrata, Bhava Vaichitri Vakrata, Linga Vaichitri Vakrata, Kriya Vaichitri Vakrata, and so on. And then the Pada Parardha, the latter half of the word, Kala Vaichitri Vakrata, Karaka Vakrata, Sankhya Vakrata, Purusha Vakrata, Upagraha Vakrata, Pratyaya Vihita Pratyaya Vakrata, Upasarga, Nipata Vakrata, and so on. And then after meeting the word level, he goes to the sentence level, Vakya Vakrata, in which he brings in the beauty of all the alankaras, and then Prakarana Vakrata of certain significant portions and episodes in poetry, and Prabandha Vakrata, the beauty of an entire poetic composition that is also taken up. Of course, he had before him some of the models provided by Dhanyaloka in his listing of what is called Vyanjaka Samagri, called Varna, Prakriti, Pratyaya, Nipata, and Vakya. So all these constitute items that can bring in elements of poetry. So that is why Mahima Bhatta, while criticizing Kuntaka, says some of the items that are listed by Kuntaka are once actually anticipated by or stated by Dhvanyalokakara. He says, Dhvanere Vedan Lakshanam Anaya Anyaya Bhangya Abhetam Bhavati. So it's only a different mode of saying what Anandavardhana has already said. Abhinnatvad Vastanaha, because the content remains the same. Atevacha Asya Teva Prayogaha Tanya Udaharanani Tairupadarshitani. And therefore the self-same examples and self-same usages are discussed by him. We can make a comparison with the comparisons provided by Geoffrey Leach in recent times. So he classifies linguistics deviation into 8 types: lexical deviation, grammatical deviation, phonological deviation, graphological deviation, semantic deviation, dialectical deviation, registerial deviation, and historical deviation. But all these he covers in a matter of some 20 to 25 pages. So this is a Kuntaka's work is a 300-page work, so which deals with these various issues in such a great detailed manner that nobody has done. So in the entire history of poetics, nobody has done such a detailed analysis. He discusses some 500 examples. So his 4 chapters. So the first chapter is called Marga, and then the second is Varna Vinyasa Vakrata. The third chapter is called Vakya Vakrata, and the last one is called Prakarana or Prabandha Vakrata. And these are very invaluable for anyone to try to understand poetry. And he also says that there are 3 margas that can be noted. One is called Sukumara Marga, another is Vichitra Marga, and the another third is Madhyama Marga. The Sukumara Marga is one which is full of very pleasing expressions and unartificial expressions. So the artificial expressions and modes as can be found, for example, in the works of Bhavabhuti or Sriharsha, or examples for the Vichitra style, and a few others fall in the Madhyama style, but Kalidasa stands for that Sukumara Marga. He says in the one of the chief marks of the Sukumara Marga is Asamasta Manohari Padavinyasa Jivitam Madhuryam Sukumarasya Margasya Prathamo Gunaha. That Madhurya or sweetness is one of the outstanding characteristics of the Sukumara Marga. And he says there will be no big compounds to be expected. Asamasta means not very big compounds. Asamasta Manohari Padavinyasa Jivitam. So Madhuryam Sukumarasya Margasya Prathamo Gunaha. And he shows how in Kalidasa's work it is Ayatna Vihitaswalpa Manohari Vibhushanaha. The ornamentation there, the various alankaras that are chosen are done effortlessly. One can see the effortlessness in the kind of comparisons and other figures of speech that abound in Kalidasa's works, and they are appropriate, charming, and so in small proportion. Swalpa Manohari Vibhushanaha. So he gives the beautiful example of the onset of the spring season in Kalidasa's Kumarasambhuva 3rd canto. He says, Balendu Vakran Yavikasha Bhavad Babuh Palashan Iti Lohitani Sadyo Vasantena Samagatanam Nakhakshatani Vanasthalinam. So there were the Palasha leaves, so and they are red leaves, Ati Lohitani, and they looked like Balendu, the moon at moonrise. So Balendu Ukrani, Avikasha Bhava, because they were not yet in full bloom. And they looked really like Vasanta who had arrived there, spring who had arrived there. Sadyo Vasantena Samagatanam Nakhakshatani va Vanasthalinam. So the Vanasthali itself is imagined as a woman, and the Palashas looked like the Nakhakshatas of imparted by Vasanta. So Vasanta is masculine, Vanasthali is feminine, and their intercourse is beautifully described there. Now he gives numerous examples. As I said, more than 500 examples are given by him. He gives one example from Meghaduta. So, and the charm in this verse is, so the ladies are moving to meet their lover, and actually it is dark. It's rather dark, and when it is very dark, people would definitely find it difficult to move. But these ladies are so much in deep love and so determined to meet their lover that they are proceeding in spite of the darkness. And describing the darkness, he says, this darkness is something that has to be pierced with a pin. So गच्छन्तीनां रमणवसतिं योषितां तत्र नक्तं रुद्धालोके नरपतिपथे सूचिभेद्यैः तमोभिः. This tamas is सूचिभेद्या, has to be pierced through a pin, which is to say it is so dense. So in English also you speak of dense darkness. So actually darkness is not something physical at all, but yet we speak of dense darkness, and he says, Kalidasa says it is सूचिभेद्या, one has to pierce it taking a pin. So Saudamanya Kanakanika Snigdhaya Darshayorvim Toyotsargat Stanita Mukharo Masma Bhur Viklavastaha. The Yaksha is advising the cloud. So as those ladies are so determined to go and meet their lovers, and as it is so dark, please help them. And how should the cloud help them? So by occasional flashes of lightning, so that their path is illumined and they will be able to go and meet their lover. Another example, so in Kumarsambhava 5th canto, so where Shiva has actually derided Shiva himself, as I gave the context earlier, and he is about to speak now again, as after Parvati has answered all the questions raised by Shiva against Shiva. And when he is about to speak, Parvati thinks that this discussion is going nowhere. So he will continue to attack Shiva, whom I adore, and I don't want to hear what he is going to say. So I can predict that, and therefore I no more want to waste my time discussing things with him regarding which I am very clear and fully determined. And therefore she says, she asks her friend, Nivaryatam Ali. So ask him to stop. So she is asking her friend to stop Shiva from speaking any further. She says, Kimapyayam vatuf punarvivakshuhu. This brahmacharin so seems to be about to speak once again. Spuritottara adharha, noticeable through the throbbing upper lip. Na kevalam yo mahatopabhashate. Not only the person who speaks Ila the great, Shrinoti tasmadapi yassa papabhak, even the one who lends ears to great men being rebuked. So even he partakes of sin, and therefore stop him from speaking any further. Now, the expression that Kalidasa uses there in the words of Parvati is Kimapi ayam vatuhu punarvivakshuhu. So this person is going to say something more. Here, the word Kimapi indicates that what Shiva is going to speak further now is something unspeakable, not fit to be spoken about, and therefore she doesn't even speak of what he may speak again, and she says he's going to speak something which I don't want. And therefore that Kimapi itself has the effect of spelling out what should not be spelled out. As there are some grammarians in the audience, I thought of bringing some grammatical ideas that are present in Kuntaka's Vakrokti Jivita. He says, he refers to Karaka Vaichitriya, how the various Karakas are the partakers of action. So in a sentence, so they bring out beauty. He says, this Kriya Vaichitriya, in the expression Prapannarthi Chido Nakaha, in fact this is the opening verse of Dhvanyaloka. So Swachha Kesirana Swachchaya Yayasitendavaha Prapannarthi Chido Nakaha. So Trayantam va Madhuripoho Prapannarthi Chido Nakaha, says the verse. So there is a reference to the claws of the talons of Narasimha. So that would destroy the distress of those who surrender to him. Prapannarthi Chido Nakaha. He says the Nakhas are known to tear things that come against them, but the words here used are that they are used to destroy the distress of those who are devoted to the Lord. Prapannarthi Chido Nakaha. So the function of Nakhas is something very different from the ones that they are used to, and this is called Kriya Vaichitriya. And therefore the normal kind of action that they involve in is now portrayed to be something very different. And he gives an example for Karana Kartari. He says, this is the context of Mahanataka, in which Rama is now getting very angry at the sea because the Samudra is not showing the way to go to Lanka. And he says, my hand is throbbing to take up the bow. Pani samprati sprashtum dhanur dhavati. My hand is running. Pani dhavati to take up the bow. Dhanuhu sprashtum. So there, it is not that the pani functions by itself. The hand is but an instrument. The mind is the antahkarana. The hands and the feet are bahya karana. It's only a karana. And the karana has been now elevated to the status of the kartri. And therefore he says, panihi, so dhanurdhavati is going towards, so sprashtum dhanurdhavati, to take up the bow. Another example of the kartri vaichitriya. So the kartrikaraka. So usually the agent of any action should be an animate being. So here he gives a series of imageries, situations where the inanimate is the kartri. Stanadvandvam mandam snapayati balad bashpanivaha. He is describing a lady who is in great distress on account of separation from her lover. And tears are falling down from her teeth and they are wetting her bosom. Stanadvandvam mandam snapayati balad bashpanivaha. So the bashpa tears are inanimate and they are actually performing the function of drenching. So which act can only be taken up by someone who is a living being. So the bashpanivaha has been made the kartri. The inanimate kartri is spoken of here. Hatha dantah kantham lutati sarasah panchamaravaha. The panchamaswara that she used to sing is now all lying dormant because she is so full of sorrow. So it is not emerging from her throat at all. Hatha dantah kantham lutati sarasah panchamaravaha. Sharadyotsna pandu pataticha kapola karatale. And her face, which has grown so dull and pale like the moon in the autumnal season, is falling upon her hand. So kapolaha karatale patati. So najani mastasyaha kaivahi vikara vyatikaraha. So I do not understand what state she is in, says her lover or whoever is describing this one. So in all these, you can find that the words like bashpanivaha or panchamaravaha or kapolaha, these are all by itself inanimate and yet they are shown as animate. Kuntaka is very sensitive to the karma kartri showing itself as a very beautiful expression, adding to beauty. So here is the context of Dasharatha going for hunting. So while he wanted to test or show his prowess while attacking the wild animals like the boar or the lion, etc., so in the forest, so when he came across the deer there, so then he did not feel like shooting the deer. So what is the reason? Tasya pareshvapi mrigeshu sharan mukshoho karnantametya bibhide nibidopi mushtihi trasati matra chatulaihi smarayatsu netraih prodhapriya nayana vibhrama cheshtitani. Because he was reminded of his own beloved, whose eyes resemble the eyes of the deer there, and therefore he did not feel like punishing them or attacking them. And he says here, the mushti, the closed fist with which he was holding the arrow, that got slackened on its own by itself. So it is not that he slackened his hold on the arrow, but his own mushti slackened by itself. So mushtihi bibhide. In fact, he even appreciates that in all karma kartri usages there is an atmane prayoga. So because of the karma vachya there, and mushtihi bibhide, bibhide is in atmane, and therefore he says even the atmane prayoga there lends charm to the poem here. And he also notices places where the same item can act as the kartri as well as the karma or the karana. So all the three you can find, for example, when I say I write with my pen, so I am the writer, so I write something and I use a pen. The pen is an instrument, the paper on which I write, so there is the object or what I write is the object of writing, and the writer is the kartri or the agent of the action. Now, how can the three be the same? The self-same thing acting as the kartri, as the karma and as the karana. He quotes one instance from Kalidasa's Kumar Sambhavam where the sages, the various divinities go to Lord Brahma. So they say, Atmanam Atmana Vedsi Srijasya Atmanam Atmana Atmana Kritina Chatvam Atmanyo Praliyase. So this comes in Kumar Sambuva. So where the 7 sages go and meet Shiva. So they say, you know yourself by yourself. You create yourself by yourself. And you dissolve everything into yourself. So this is also because of the peculiar nature of the Lord of the world, who is himself the creator, the sustainer, and the destroyer of the world. And there is also an equation that Kuntaka speaks of between the Lord and the creation. So that equation also he speaks of. And he enjoys the beauty of the same item being the Kartri, the Karana, and the Karma. And he also shows how the depiction in poetry of animals, so a picturesque depiction adds beauty to the work. And he gives the example of Kalidasa's Shakuntalam, where Dushyanta is chasing the deer, and the description of the fleet deer in scare is described in this beautiful verse in Srakdhara meter. Griva bhanga abhiramam muhuranu patatis yandane datta drishtihi paschardhena pravishta sharapatana bhayad bhuyasa purvakayam darbhair ardhavalidhai shamavirta mukha bhramshibhek kirna vartma pashyodagra platatva viyati bhutanam stokam urvyam prayati. So he says, he now is describing this to the charioteer, and he says, the running deer with turning its neck again and again to see whether the chariot is chasing it. So the turning of the neck itself lends beauty to the deer. Griva bhanga abhiramam muhuranupatatis yandane datta drishtihi. And then paschardhena pravishta sharapatana bhayad bhuyasa purvakayam. The deer is expecting the arrow to fall on its hind any moment, and therefore it is as though it has pushed the hind portion into the front portion. Paschardhena pravishta sharapatana bhayad bhuyasa purvakayam. And it is eating the darbha grass, and the half-chewn darbha grass is falling from its mouth on its way while it is running. So darbhair ardhavalidhaihi shamavirta mukha bhramshibhihi. So it's so tired and gasping for breath, and so the mouth open, the darbha grass is falling down. So kirna vartma, the path of the deer is strewn with the darbha grass. And look, O charioteer, pashya udagra plutatvat, because of its high leaps and bounds, it is as though viyati bahutanam stokam urvyam prayati. The deer is moving more in the sky than on the earth. So whoever has watched on the National Geographic the running deer, so when they are in scare, can enjoy this. Kuntaka also gives a beautiful example of metaphor. So it's a metaphor made of metaphors. He gives this example, Mukhapankaja rangesmin bhrulata nartaki tava leela nrityam karoti iti ramyam rupaka rupakam. So he says this is an example for rupaka rupaka. So rupaka is metaphor, and there is a metaphor of metaphors. So he has pitched upon such a beautiful example. Usually we compare the face to the lotus, Mukha Pankaja, and then the brows to creepers, Bhru Lata, and then dance is shown as a matter of grace, Leela and Nritya. Now he says, the Mukha Pankaja is the Ranga. So see, Mukha Pankaja is already one metaphor, and the whole Mukha Pankaja, the lotus-like face itself, is the stage. So there is another Rupaka now. Mukha Pankaja rangesmin bhrulata nartaki tava. So this bhrulata, is the creeper-like brow itself is dancing. So the coquetry of women, so where they can move, or of dancers, for example, especially those who are trained in Bharatanatyam or Kuchipudi or Kathakali, especially the dancers of Kathakali, the kind of various kinds of movements of the eyebrows that they can make, they take months of practice, and see, it involves great muscular control, so over all the muscles there. So Bhrulata Nartaki, so on this stage, so this Bhrulata is the dancer, Nartaki Itava. Leela Nrityam Karotiti. So this is performing the dance of Leela. So Karotiti Ramyam Rupaka Rupakam. This is a metaphor of metaphor involving metaphors. So he analyzes even such beautiful samples of poetry. We now pass on to the last portions of his work, wherein he deals with what is called Prakarana Vakrata and Prabandha Vakrata. Prakarana Vakrata is where a particular episode lends some extraordinary beauty to the whole work. For this, he takes up this context of the curse of Durvasas in Kalidasa's Abhigyana Shakuntalam. These are the words of the curse of Durvasas. So pronounced by Durvasas, he says, Vichintayanti yamananyamanasa tapodhanam vetsinamam upasthitam smarishyati tvam nasa bodhitopisan katham pramatta prathamam kritamiva. Actually, the story of Shakuntala occurs in the original Mahabharata. The story in the original Mahabharata also has a charm of its own. But Kalidasa has improved upon the story, and he has changed the plot here and there slightly, and especially it is this episode, namely the episode of Durvasas, that he introduces in the play. In fact, that is the hinge on which the entire play moves. So it comes in the fourth act. In fact, sage Durvasas does not appear on the stage at all, and all that he speaks, so his involvement of in the actions of Abhigyana Shakuntalam, which is about 100 pages play, is but about half a page, that's all. But that still constitutes the very central point on which the entire play runs. So here is the context where the sage curse, the sage Durvasas is cursing Shakuntala. So Vichintayanti yamananya manasa. So with utmost devotion of your thought, so you are thinking of a person. So that is obviously it is Dushyanta. And tapodhanam vedsi namam upasthitam. And I am a tapodhana and you are not taking note of me. And the curse that he pronounces is that as a consequence of this, even he too, the person whom you are contemplating of, so even he will not be able to remember you, smarishyati tvam nasa bodhitopisan, even when he is reminded of this, like katham pramatta prathamam kritamiva. You tell any difficult situation, Kalidasa can give a beautiful example. He says, Dushyanta will forget what all he had told you, what all he had spoken to you, just like a drunkard, pramattaha prathamam kritam kathamiva. So all that he had said earlier. So even if you remind a drunkard saying that you said this and this, then so when you were in an inebriated state, he will wonder himself, did I say such things? So even Dushyanta would be surprised and taken aback and will not believe the words that he himself uttered. So when you remind him of the very words that he has spoken. So this is the curse that has been spoken of, in this context. So what is the advantage of introducing this episode? Why did Kalidasa bring about this change into the plot of the work? So if you look into, say, his Raghuvamsha, we can find that he is quite faithful to the original. He has not made any major alteration in the story of the Ramayana in his Raghuvamsha. So, but in this story, he has made some changes, and the changes are this, especially here. So, in the original, Dushyanta goes hunting, and he chances upon Shakuntala, the beautiful maiden, and he is attracted towards her, and she too is attracted towards him. But he says, see, I would like to marry you, and she says, she stipulates the condition that, see, that would be possible only if, see, the son born of me will occupy the throne, he will become your successor. And he agrees, and he marries, and he goes away to the kingdom, and he wants to get her there back, but he coolly forgets. So, and then is born, goes to him, and he pretends he does not remember. She challenges him, and then there is an Asharira Vani which says that she is indeed the wife of yours, and Dushyanta says, yes, as it had not occurred in the presence of many people, I thought people may suspect me to be otherwise, and that's why I pretended, though I remember this, I welcome you, and he takes her into his harem. That is the story that is presented in the Mahabharata. On the other hand, in Kalidasa's Shakuntalam, what we see is that when Dushyanta comes there, sage Kanva, so has gone afar, has gone to Somatirtha. So it is about 1,000 miles away from the place of Hastinavati. So it's somewhere near Gujarat. So this is this place is the place of Himalayas where the Tapovana is. So, and therefore sage Kanva has gone there. In the original Mahabharata, sage Kanva had gone out only to collect some flowers and fruits. So here Sage Kanwa has gone that way, and Dushyanta is requested to stay there, and Dushyanta and Shakuntala find occasions to meet, and they fall in love with each other. And unfortunately for Shakuntala, what has happened is Dushyanta has left for his capital. So there was an urgent message from the capital that he had to arrive there very urgently, and therefore he goes and he says, I would not like to take you just like this, but with all, you see, the grandeur and paraphernalia of, see, taking a queen to the capital. So it is with that arrangement I'll come back again. So he had said, he had given her a ring, and he says, by the time you finish counting the letters on the ring, one per day, the name was Dushyanta on the ring. So within 3 days, so you will be in my capital. That's what he had promised. And barely had Dushyanta left, did sage Durvasas arrive there. And naturally, Shakuntala was absorbed in thoughts about Dushyanta. There is absolutely nothing wrong in a woman thinking about her husband. And especially because Dushyanta had left just then, it was only very natural that she was absorbed in thoughts about him. And further, for Shakuntala, this was going to be a sea change in her life. So all her life she has led in a tapovana, in a penance grove, and now she is going to become the queen, and therefore there is a sea change in her life, and therefore her imaginations must be running riot, and therefore she must be imagining all sorts of things about her future and so on. So she must be dreaming so many things, and at that very moment sage Durvasa's chances to come to the ashrama, and she just doesn't notice that he has come there. Whereas her father, Sage Kanwa, had specifically assigned the duty of taking care of guests to Shakuntala and not to anybody else, and she has miserably failed in her duty. And even her friends get to know of the arrival of the sage only when he angrily departs after pronouncing the curse, and they run to him and fall at his feet, and they request him to condone this mistake of Shakuntala, considering him to be his own daughter and the first time that she has after all committed this mistake, and so on. And the sage was in fact so kind. We normally get the picture of sage Durvasas being a very furious man, highly irascible and tempestuous in his temperament and so on. But the sage was so kind that even when her friends confessed and apologized on behalf of Shakuntala, he was kind enough to say, okay, now that these words have come out of my mouth, they cannot go in vain. However, because you have made this request, the curse will come to an end as soon as some item or sovereign of recognition is shown, is produced. So the friends thought that the ring that Dushyanta had given was with Shakuntala after all, and if she shows it to Dushyanta in case he has forgotten, then the whole problem is solved. Unfortunately, Shakuntala loses that, as we know from the story. Now, Kuntaka discusses this story, how this saves the character of Dushyanta, how it all looks very natural, so there is no artificiality at all. We can find, for example, very many dramatists who have introduced changes, and that looks quite artificial or going against the spirit of the original. In fact, Anandavardhana warns against changing the plot of the original to the detriment of the original rasa, especially in case of epics like the Ramayana and the Mahabharata and so on, so which are very well established and ensconced in the cultural memory. And Kuntaka points out how this episode has added beauty to the extraordinary play of Kalidasa, namely Abhignana Shakuntala. So, in fact, there is much to explain regarding the very wordings of the curse. Kuntaka goes to dwell on that also, but for lack of time, I will not go into that. So, after my talk is over, you can ask questions regarding that, so I can explain how every word there is very significant. And Kuntaka goes on to say that it's not merely in introducing new plots or changing the subplots, etc., but even in the naming of a work, so poets show their distinction of this vakrata or beauty there. Astam vastushu vaidagdhyam. Vastu is the plot, vaidagdhyam is skill. Kavye kamapi vakratam pradhana samvidhananka namnapi kurute kavihi. So in the very naming of the act or very naming of the work. So he says titles like Abhigyan Shakuntala is, so they are very good titles, or Mudra Rakshasa or Chalita Rama. Chalita means deceived, where Rama is deceived. Whereas these titles are very bland, like Ramacharita or Shishupala Vadha. So these are very, very dull titles. So even in giving the name of a play, so the poet must use his skill, and even there he must impart its a certain beauty to it. In fact, this was of course an old adage with Bharata himself. Bharata is an encyclopedia. So he says, Namakaryam Natakasya Garbhitartha Prakashanam. So the play should be so named as to give a hint at the story which or the essence or the theme that is contained, that is buried deep within the play. And Kuntaka goes on to say that on a same theme, many times there will be several plays or compositions written, but each can have a charm of its own if the author is a Mahakavi. He says, there are so many Rama plays, Kathonmeshe Samanepi, even though the way the story is developed is similar, Upushiva Nijair Gunaihi, Prabandha Praninaha Iva, Prabhasante Prathak Prathak. So the various works have their own personalities. So each has its own personality. So as with human beings, each human being has similar features. So we all have 2 eyes and 2 hands and 2 feet and so on, but each one is different. And even so, Prabandhaha, poetical compositions, are Praninaha Iva, like living beings. So each is endowed with a distinction of its own. Kuntaka rejects the ancient classifications even of Dhvanikara. So we find in, for example, Anandavardhana's classification of Kavya into Uttama Kavya, Madhyama Kavya and Adhama Kavya, and Jagannatha Pandita adds Adhamadhama Kavya, so or Uttamottama Kavya and so on. But these are rejected by Kuntaka. He says, ultimately, these do not form the criterion. And once again, he also rejects the styles which are named after the various regions like Vaidarbhi, Gaudi, etc. So the style that is current or prevalent in the Vidarbha region is known as Vaidarbhi, and the region around the Panchagauda countries is known as Gaudi and so on. He says this is useless to classify like this because poets can change from place to place and the same person can write in different styles, and therefore such geographical descriptions of styles is nothing important. One of the important items in Kuntaka's Vakrokti Jivita, this is more or less the last point that I will be dealing with. So it is said that generally ministers, so when they go on and on and on, the audience will get bored. So when the audience gets too bored, he will suddenly say, just to attract the attention of the audience, he says, and lastly, so then everybody thinks that the speech is going to come to an end and they will get interested and listen to him, and he can again go on and on. So a lease of another few more minutes he can get. So it's not in that sense that I am saying this, but I am really coming to an end. So his perception of Pratibha and his concept of Sahridaya, so these are very beautiful in Kuntaka's Vakrokti Jivita. Regarding Pratibha, he says, Na varnyamanaswarupaha padarthaha kavibhi abhutaha kriyanti. The poets do not create things that are just not there at all. Kevalam satta matra naiva sphuratam. Those things were just there, only satta matra. Tesham tatha vidha kop yatishayaha punaradhiyate. Now, a certain excellence, so an indescribable kopi. In fact, the word kopi and kapi, kimapi, etc. occurs so many times in Kuntaka's Vakrokti Jivita. So it shows that the indescribability of it. So kopyatishyah punaradhiyate, they impart such an indescribable and ineffable excellence to the things that just are. Yena kamapi sahridaya hridaya harineem ramaniyatam adhiropyanti. So it will impart a certain ramaniyata or charm, so which captivates the heart of the connoisseurs. So, and he says, as did Dhvanikara himself say, that the poet is another Brahma. So Vidhatri Vyapadesha Patratam Pratipadyante Kavayaha. Vidhatri is Brahma, Vyapadesha is title. So they become the recipients, Patratam, of the Vidhatri Vyapadesha. So Pratipadyante Kavayaha, the poets come to receive the title of a poet. And he also quotes Apare Kavi Samsare Kavireva Prajapatihi Thasmai Rochate Vishwam Tadhedam Parivartate, that has been stated by Anandavardhana. He says in this Kavi Samsara, the Kavi is himself the Brahma. So as he wills, so does he create the poetic world. Even more than this, the concept of Sahridaya that Kuntaka shows is something that is simply unparalleled. Of course, we have got a beautiful definition of the Sahridaya in Abhinav Gupta's commentary on Dhunyaloka. So, Yesham Kavyanushirana Anushirana Vashat Vishadi Bhute Mano Mukare, etc. He gives a beautiful description of the Sahridayas, but the supreme role performed by the Sahridaya is beautifully stated by Kuntaka in this verse. So, actually, he gives us an illustrative verse, but a beautiful verse. Leenam vastuni yena sukshma subhagam tattvam gira krishyate nirmatum prabhaven manoharamidam vachaiva yova bahihi vande dvavapit avaham kavivarau vande taram tam punaha yo vijnata parishramoya manayoho bharavatarakshamaha. He says there are two kinds of poets. So one set of poets, they are able to spot some of the most subtle things that are present in things outside. Leenam vastuni, so submerged within a thing. Leenam vastuni, yena sukshma subhagam, which is extremely subtle and also charming. Tattvam, so such a tattva, so gira krishyate, so with their words they are able to extract that and they are able to express the same. And the second kind of poets, nirmatam prabhaven manoharamidam vachaiva yova bahihi. So these poets are able to create through the wizardry of words. So vachaiva, so even with their mere words, they are able to create manoharamidam nirmatam. So they can create a charming world. I bow down to both. Vande dvavapitavaham kavivarau. Both of them, he says, are kavivaras, great poets. But he says, I bow down the more, vande taram. So I bow down the more, tam punaha, him. Who is it? Whom does Kuntaka revere even more than the poets? He says, it is the Sahridaya. Yo vijnata parishramoya manayoho bharavatarakshamaha. So it is the Sahridaya who knows the great efforts of these great poets and is able to unload, see, the burden that they are bearing and wearing. So bharavatarakshamaha, their burden. So he is able to unburden. So the poet or the artist or the singer, so they have some idea in their mind and they will be constantly on the lookout for some elite connoisseur who can really grasp what they try to portray. And it's only when they meet with such a person, such a Sahridaya, who can really grasp the niceties and nuances of the artistic creation that has been made, that the poet will be really happy. So Yo vijnata parishramoya manayoho. So it is such a person who can understand the great trouble that the poets have taken up and bharavatarakshama and make him lose his burden, and they take upon themselves, and he is greatly relieved. The poet is greatly relieved only when he meets a Sahridaya who can really spot the nuances that are brought out to him. So in a way, Kuntaka himself can be said to be a great Sahridaya rather than a Lakshanika. So he set out to be a Lakshanika, but he actually ends up as a great Sahridaya. So we don't find, for example, the kind of rigor that we find in, Dhanikara's work or Abhinav Gupta's work. So, however, as a Sahridaya, he perhaps surpasses even Abhinav Gupta himself. That is why T.N. Srikantaya, one of the greatest writers on Indian poetics, says, if only Kuntaka had written some other works, we do not know whether he had written any other work, he is just a one-man work. If only he had written a commentary on some works of Kalidasa or some portions of Kalidasa, what a great treasure it would have been. So, such a great Sahridaya Kuntaka was. I made a mention of some of the commonalities of the Western writings. I have not made a study of them, but I have only made a note of what kinds of parallels that can be evoked while one goes through the works of Kuntaka. So some of the Western critics, so he has been compared to by R.S. Pathak. He says, Kuntaka's views offer the most striking similarities with modern Western analytic criticism. So he brings out, you see, numerous parallels with the Western stylists and rhetoricians and poeticians, and he says Ezra Pound and T.S. Eliot, so the expression oblique approach that they make use of, the technique with which they analyze, can be very much found in Kuntaka. In Bateson's stress on connotations of poetry, the concept is there. So these are all very recent findings of the recent rhetoricians, but they are already there in the 10th century, the latter of the 10th century, that Kuntaka was in Kashmir. So Kuntaka was from Kashmir. Dhvanyaloka author Anandavardhana was from Kashmir. Abhinav Gupta was from Kashmir. Kashmir was a great land of many philosophical works and literary and poetical works. So and Blackmore's poetic language as gesture. So Alan Tate's concept of tension. So these are some of the issues that are brought out by R.S. Pathak. I have left out so many things. So anyhow, if you have any questions to ask, I welcome it. I profusely thank Professor Amba Kulkarni for inviting me. So the Pro-Vice Chancellor of the university for patiently sitting through, I do not know how many lectures he has to sit through, and in spite of his busy schedule, he will have to listen to lectures. So some of which, of course, perhaps my lecture was probably a little enjoyable because it dealt with general poetry and some situations in our plays and poems that he will also be naturally familiar with the situations in Kalidasa's works or the epics Ramayana, Mahabharata, or Meghaduta. Most people are familiar with to some extent or the other. But to be in the midst of every lecture should be a torture for, so as ex officio persons, they will have to sit, but it is so kind of him to be sitting all through the function. But the greatest thanks go to Indira Devi ji, who has been present here, and her husband himself was a poet. Her father knew Dhvanyaloka, so he comes from a great family, and really it's in keeping with the stature of the royal family that she hails from, that she has these interests and tastes, so which are not always easily possible for the persons of ordinary bringing up. So it bespeaks of her great taste and interest, and we are extremely thankful to Indira ji for instituting this endowment lecture. Thanks all of you. So I welcome questions. Looks like I am unquestionable. Can you please get the question?
It's only appreciating.
All the facets of the important facets of Vakrokti Jivita have been delivered very well. You could give the beauty of Vakrokti now. But in your talk you expressed that Kuntaka denied the concept of Adhama, Neecha, such type.
ಉತ್ತಮ ಮಧ್ಯಮ ಅಧಮ ಎಲ್ಲ ವಿನಯ ಮಾಡೋದು.
Yeah.
He mentions the beautiful quotations of Kalidasa.
Quotation of?
ಕಾಳಿದಾಸ.
We can see which he likes, which he doesn't like. So all the times the poet tries to give the beauty of the poetry. So that was the beauty of Kuntaka, and at the same time he likes some of the best poems of Kalidasa. It is called the Uttama. Otherwise, he would have given so many other poems also, but he didn't give because he considers that the works of Kalidasa are so grateful. That's why he gives such poems.
True, sir. True, sir. I appreciate your comment.
ಕಾಂಪ್ಲಿಮೆಂಟ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ರು ನಿಮಗೆ.
So kind of you, sir.
Really, you could understand so many things which actually we don't know. The inner things which you have presented from
Got to understand so many things which you presented.
So the opposite of Vakra is Sakra, you believe?
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
No, is the opposite of Vakra Shakra.
Vakra in Sanskrit stands for Kutila. So whatever is bent.
Yeah, right.
So
So using the Kutila, that is Vakra also, they are trying to convey something Sakra. I mean, getting some positivity out of the approaching through the root of negativity, arriving to the positivity.
Yeah, yeah.
Very broadly.
yeah, it's not the straightforward way of putting things. So yeah, it's a circumlocutus way in a way. So it's a poetic touch. So the word Vakra in Sanskrit, so it's from root Vanch, itself standing for beauty. So Vanchasi in the Vedic literature stands for the representation of beauty. So and it is said that sometimes much more than the full moon, it is the single digit moon that is most charming. So and which is crooked, the single digit moon. So it is a single digit moon that is present on the head of Shiva. Okay, so that's why Kalidasa refers to Kalachasa Kantimati Kalavataha. So and that crookedness is what lends charm to even Shiva's head. So that way, that's why in the beginning shlokas also there was a reference to that. So Kuntaka shows that beauty is present where poets choose to express not in the way that the ordinary folk use. So in imparting a special beauty through the special kind of expression that is made through the choice of words, the choice of expressions, and embellishing even them.
Had selected the word Vakrokti. What is the intention behind this?
Kuttaka selected the word Vakrokti. What can be the intention behind it?
Yeah, that's what.
The words Dhvani, Rasa, etc., etc. He selected the word
Oh,
Vakrokti. That is the new word.
leaving out Dhvani, Rasa, etc. He chose Vakrokti.
Yes, yes, yes.
What is the...
True. He because you see that's why they say I made a mention of that. Much more than a Lakshanika, he is a good Sahridaya. Okay, as a Lakshanika, it will be more responsible of a person to look into all aspects and give proper definitions and show the depths of poetry. So that is why Kuntaka could not get any follower, because he was not establishing anything new, but he was a sort of a very good commentator. Probably the Dhvani school had started just then. Okay, so it was not as though it was very well established by the time of Kuntaka. So Anandavardhana himself mentions of a few opponents of Dhvani in the opening karika of Dhvanyaloka. So he says Bhakta Mahustamanye. So Vacham Avishaye, certain Anirvachaniyavada, Bhaktavada, and so on. So I know the full verse. I'm not getting beginning of the verse. So so Tena Brahma Sahradaya Manah Prite Tat Swarupam. That's how it begins. So in fact, the portrayal of Rasa ultimately turns out to be the quintessence of all poetry. Okay, and Kuntaka here and there speaks of that also. And in fact, Mahima Bhatta, as I referred to, attacks Kuntaka and says, you are not a real Dhvani Virodhi. You are towing the very line of Anandavardhana because you are underlying the self-same concepts. So he says, I am a Dhvani Virodhi because I say that it is Anumana, that is the inference that is at the heart of poetry, and therefore what all you claim of Dhvani can be derived from Anumana. That is Mahima Bhatta's claim. So Kuntaka, see, there are 8 opponents of Dhvanikara, so that he mentions in the opening verse itself. So Kuntaka must have come just after Dhvanikara, and the Dhvani school still had not found easy and full acceptance. And therefore, when a new school arises, so people either laugh at it or criticize it or try to show that they have something smarter. Okay, so this is what must have happened with Kuntaka, and therefore what Dhanikara appreciated, Kuntaka also appreciated. Only his division, see, into Uttamakavya, Madhyamakavya, Adhamakavya, he disagreed with, because he said poetry is poetry and poetry must have Vakrokti. If there is Vakrokti, there is beauty. So that's how he tried to define, see, the beauty of poetry. And on the other hand, he tried to show that there are other margas called Sukumara, Vichitra and Madhyama, each of which should have some four important qualities, gunas and so on. So, ultimately, what Dhanikara tries to say, Kuntaka is also trying to say, only not making use of the word, Dhvani or Vyangya, because for us, for an ordinary man especially, what we see in poetry is some words ultimately. And the words are said in some distinct and different way. And therefore, some different way of putting into words, so of expressing things, this must constitute poetry, and therefore the words are ukti, and the different way in which it is put is vakra, and therefore vakrokti is poetry. So this is how he must have arrived at the concept of vakrokti.
So in this part of country, we have a poet titled Vikata Kavi. Instead of Vakra,
We have Vikata Kavi anta title ida.
A Vikata Kavi is a very highly talented poet, so, and he knows plays on words, so play on words he is very good at. So these things are there. In Sanskrit also we have the division into Kavis and Pandita Kavis. So there is a saying, Pandita Kavayah Kavayaha, Kevalam Kavayastu Kevalam Kapayaha. So it's only Pandita Kavis who are Kavis, and ordinary poets are no more than monkeys. So that is the kind of description that is given. And of course, there was an age when poets wanted to show off their scholarship. For example, in Naishadha Kavya, you can see his mastery of the various Shastras, so very well displayed. So there is this saying, Tarkeshu Karkashadhiyo Vayameva Nanye, Kavyeshu Komaladhiyo Vayameva Nanye. So we are, whether it comes to logic or it comes to poetry, none can match me. So that is the kind of claim that they used to make. So even regarding Sri Harsha, there are such claims. So of his being a master logician and a great poet simultaneously. So was Vedanta Deshika. So he says, Kova Chakshurudanjayeda Vipura Satopatarkachata Shastra Shastri Vihara Sambhrita Rana Swadeshu Vadeshu Naha. So in his Vadas he used to excel so very much. And there used to be poets who used to say that one must have had some tantric practice to rival me. He says, Anaswadya Gaudim, Anaradhya Kali, Mrite Mantra Tantra, Dvina Shabda Chauryat, Prabandham, Pragalbham, Prakartum, Pravaktum, Virinchip Prapanche, Madanyah Kavihka. So who can there be a poet who can rival me? So such poets who would show off their, he says, Jagannatha Pandita says, Amula Dratnasanor Malaya Valaita Dachakulat Payodher Yavantas Santi Santah Kavikriti Patavaste Vishankam Vadantu Mridvika Madhya Niryan Masana Rasajari Madhuri Bhajya Bhajam Vacham Acharyataya Padam Anubhavitum Kosti Dhanyo Madanya. So who is there who can equal me? So the age was when they used to flaunt their scholarship and the knowledge of their various shastras, and Vikatakavis too. So their extraordinary wit was also very evident. Ready wit. Yeah, true. Thanks, Alok.
Now it is my turn to give my remarks, but hardly there are any remarks. I think after listening to Professor Kannan, it's almost reading a wonderful research paper. It's very comprehensive research work on Vakrokti Jivita. The very interesting part of his presentation is he spoke more about what is poetry. He started with what is poetry and almost ended with very minute things, how to name. That's what also you are saying. And also the role of the audience, the way now we have enjoyed your lecture. So when somebody writes a poem, so obviously they look at the people who are going to read and understand. So you have given us an arc. I think all of us need to make our own circles. How big circle we are going to make, it all depends. And the very interesting part is somebody who lived in 11th century, and now what we are discussing in 20th century about stylish and other things. So he was able to articulate so well in 11th century. And always I'm a great lover of poetry. So always I wonder what are the various kinds of metrics we have to measure poetry. And once I think, Dr. Pillalmari Ramlu was telling some of these rasa, dhwani and other things. Now I think I could get more insights how to evaluate a poem and poetry. And it's a nice occasion that we spoke about Kuntaka's this Vakrokti Jivita as part of Sri Guntur Sheshendra Sharma's endowment lecture. Because all of us know Guntur Sheshendra Sharma is also very good at his own poetry and that alankaras and metaphors. And also he is also one of the stylists, his style and the kind of use of words, very limited words, he was very effectively used to express his concepts. So I think, it's a great coincidence that you delivered a lecture, mostly is covering Kuntaka's, and also some of it we could also relate to Guntur Sheshendra Sharma's poems. So, and we profusely thank Rajkumari Indra Devi, Dhanraj Gir for helping our academics at our University of Hyderabad, especially School of Humanities. As the Dean said, each department of School of Humanities is supported by Madam. I think this is my third lecture I am attending. And even the recently added that GT conference facility, that is also, I think now it's going to be, all these days we used to say that, GT is there of University Extension Center, and we started our university there, but now again, the GT is in use because of various kinds of the poetic and the cultural and very intellectual discussions are going to take place. We thank you very much, Madam, for your continuous support. I also thank Professor Kannan for giving wonderful lecture. Now I request my colleague Professor J.S.R. Prasad to propose vote of thanks.
Namastabhaye, Namo Mahatbhyah. I deem it a great privilege to propose vote of thanks for this Sri Guntur Sheshendra Sharma Endowment Lecture for Sanskrit. Sir, we have thoroughly enjoyed our lecture. Having listened you on Kuntaka's Vakrokti Jivitam, my respect to literature increase, especially to Kuntaka. What I feel is, to understand this Kanta Samhitas, all the kavyas which are classified as Kanta Samhitas, should be could be well understood having known Kuntaka in advance. I think this is what actually derived the insight. Having listened you gave so many wonderful examples, and also you quoted some Western critics also with regard to his usages at phonetic level, word level, sentential level, and context. Beautiful examples have been quoted. Really, they are inspiring. And you quoted about the linguistic deviations of Leach. I think he is short of examples, I feel, because you only mentioned some 8 examples of Leach, whereas Kuntaka mentioned about 500 examples colored out from the entire literature. It's really, really inspiring. And I would like to know, is scope of examples limited to only kavyas, or he extend beyond the kavya literature like Puranas or any other texts? Natakas also. Yeah, and the figurative expressions, Karaka, Karbakartru, so many examples have been quoted very nicely. Having listened you, I think today, everybody in this hall must be very might have been very inspired. At the same time, would like to know more about this kind of literature, especially with regard to Kuntaka. And I feel none of the departments are teaching this as one of the important texts, especially exempting the Sahitya departments. I think this kind of text should be read by everybody, because this Sahrodaya Hridaya Allasa is the ultimate goal. And having listened your example on Pratibha of Kuntaka, you mentioned about Apare Kavya Samsare Kavireka Prajapatihi. I just recall a shloka of a kind of a funny shloka. It is what a lover has sent his mind as messenger to his Priya, and it is actually taking pleasure itself, there itself, it is not coming back. Navumsakamedi matva priyaye preshitam manaha tattu tatraiva ramate hataha panina vayam. Because Padini has attributed this manas to be in neuter gender. Manas is neuter. This fellow thought that because it is neuter in gender, could not do anything. Let me use this messenger. Unfortunately, it is taking pleasure there itself. It is not coming back. So these kind of expressions give us more joy. So, and also you mentioned about Mukhapankaja, Rangesmin, Bhrulata, Nattaki Tava, etc. kind of examples. Really, they are very, very beautiful examples you have quoted, sir. We profusely thank you for accepting our invitation to deliver a lecture on Kuntaka's Vakrokti Jeevitam under the series of Guntur Seshant Sarma endowment lectures. So I, on behalf of the department, all of us, I would like to thank Vidyanidhi, Vachaspati, Professor K.S. Kaddan, who is the first occupant of the Sant Rajendra Singh Maharaji chair in IIT Madras. Thank you very much, sir. Next, I would like to thank Rajkumari Indra Devi Dhanraj Girji. She not only generously gave the endowment to so many departments in this university, but also she attends all lectures patiently. That is really, really inspiring, madam. In spite of her age, she never cares for any of these things. I would like to know, before that, I would like to say a few things. Your palace is named as Gyan Bagh Palace. So you give importance to Jnanam and Jnanam only. That is the reason you are actually giving endowments to university departments. And also just now, our Professor Rajshekhar Garu mentioned that there is a conference hall inaugurated in Golden Threshold with your generous support. So that is one thing. When I was reading a bio about you on the internet, I come to know that you used to play billiards, badminton kind of games also. Probably that is the secret of your health, I believe. And and with regard to respected Guntur Seshant Sarma Garu, he was the first Telugu poet nominated for Nobel Prize and a great scholar par excellence, and he has written over 50 books and a winner of the Sahitya Academy Award. One of the books is Shodasi, written on the concept of Ramayana. Ramayanam is equated to the 24 letters of Gayatri Mantra. Guntur Seshant Sarma Garu has interpreted the nuances that are there in Ramayana in the name of Shodasi, looking from the Tantric perspective, how Tantra Shastra aspects can be considered as part of Shodasi and all. People who are interested can go through these books. Then I would like to, I thank you once again for your generous support and your coming personally to attend all these lectures. Thank you, madam. Next, I would like to thank our Pro Vice Chancellor, Professor B. Rajshekhar Garu. I think we have got a very young, dynamic and energetic Pro Vice Chancellor, especially for humanities ever. And we are enjoying his presence during our guest faculty interviews where he asked a lot of questions to the prospective faculty with regard to Sanskrit. That shows his keen interest towards literature and languages. Thank you very much, sir, for your presence throughout the meeting. Then I would like to thank Professor Sripal Subramanian Garu, recently honored with the title Mahamahaupadhyaya. It is a great preceptor. This is the meaning of Mahamahaupadhyaya. When you literally look at the word, the scholar who taught 3 generations is considered as Mahamahaupadhyaya. Last semester, sir has agreed to come here to give lectures to the MA students. This semester also, we are lucky to have him. So we are honored, sir, with your presence in the university, and the first time we are enjoying your presence with the Mahamahaupadhyaya. And also, I sat in your classes when you were teaching Arun and others, and I come to know the kind of scholarship in Nyaya, Vedanta, Vyakarana kind of Shastras. Really, we are thankful to you for being with us and accepting our invitation to be felicitated. Then I would like to know, thank our Dean, Professor Siraj Jostarani Garu, who was there initially here. And also, I would like to thank Professor C. Annapurna from Hindi Department, who was there initially, Professor P. Ramalu from Telugu Department, Professor Sudhakar Garu from Telugu Department, and our Professor Emeritus, Professor Aloka Parashar Sen. And all the time, I locate the great lover of Sanskrit, Dr. Panikumar Garu, IAS, who comes to the lectures, sits very quietly, who is sitting at the last. Thank you very much, sir, for your great encouragement. And last but not least, all the people in this room, our own MA students, PhD scholars, other friends from other departments, and again, last but least, Dr. H.R. Meera, Sahadharmacharani of Professor K.S. Kannan, who is helping him in all aspects, for accompanying him and also gracing the occasion. Yesterday we had 2 lectures of Dr. Meera in our own department. Thank you, madam, for your being with us. I thank one and all once again. Thank you very much. Namaste.
You are